Hey all, Tabs here, back playing some more Planet Zoo. So we are doing something new today. We have moved out of the franchise zoo. I did mention in the last episode it was getting a little bit stale with it. Pretty much just that I've been playing that one since the start, so I thought I'd move on to this new thing. So this is a zoo based on, well, it's either going to be a zoo or it's going to be just a kind of mini project. I haven't really decided yet, but today we're building, as you'll have seen from the thumbnail, building a big dome, and this is basically inspired by the zoo in Paris, which is the Parc Zoologique. I think that's how you pronounce it. My French is not great, but so yeah, it's a cool looking zoo actually. It's obviously a really old zoo that's been kind of modernised and refreshed a bunch of times, and some really interesting exhibits there. So obviously it's in northern Europe, so it's not a particularly warm climate. Well, it's fairly average climate. So tropical animals and stuff like that need to be kept indoors, and so they've built this enormous. It's quite old actually, but built this enormous dome structure, and this is sort of what's inspired me to build this. So you'll see here I'm doing. There's quite a few iterations of doing this, but this is my attempt to get a dome that's kind of looks like it's got some structural supports and some integrity. So you'll see I've used the what are those pieces? I think they're a light piece, like a lamp piece, the sort of cage frame thing there, and I've replicated that a bunch of times to try and get it to look like a support beam. And now I'm just kind of copying it round, and this is obviously a long grindy process, but I think the result turns out really well. So yeah, lots of little tweaks here and there. So I'm just trying to get the dome itself to be, or the pieces themselves to line up. You'll know that if you've done this yourself, that quite often when you rotate round, they won't perfectly line up. I'm having to take the wall pieces out now. And reduce the I only want a half dome. You'll see this go round. You'll see as I piece this together. This is a wall section, so I'm cutting the piece count down here because I hadn't actually realised this. But you can't move. You can't move, and when you've got an object or a building piece that's over a certain number, I think it's like 4,000 pieces or something. You can't move it. So I had to cut that down, and now I'm just kind of copying it. I've flipped it over. That was why I took the wall pieces off. And now we're adding what is going to be the end pieces. So I've gone back to another kind of copy of that same wall structure. So you see below I've got the same wall. The base of the wall is the same there. This is probably going to look a little bit confusing until you see right at the end, but I've used these curved wall ceiling pieces, glass ceiling pieces, but the problem you have with those is that you obviously can't rotate them in any other direction than in the horizontal axis. So I'm kind of just fudging in some glass here, roughly following the curve to give me a shape, and then you'll see I'll copy this round in a second. This is probably the one bit of the dome that if the next time I do this, I would change this slightly because it would benefit from having a frame around it. So there's me copying it round. So I'm now on. I've got the whole dome, and I can take out. Oh, there's me copying the dome round. Got it right this time. Not sure what I got wrong there, but this is now I've got to take these pieces away because I can't rotate it. In the other axis, I've got to take the wall pieces away, and now I can roll it on its side just to check that it's rolled on its side. Now I've got to make a dome, so it looks a bit like I'm making a second dome here because it's obviously got the wall structures and everything on it, but I just did that to make sure the size matched up to the original dome pieces. So here we go, copying this round. And there's me a little jump ahead. There are quite a few jumps actually. There's a tactical save there because obviously I just realised I haven't saved it in a while, and I've now built quite a lot. So I'm having to cut the piece count down again. This is something I've trying to make sure that I'm better at. Hadn't played Planet Zoo for very long. Not massively played Planet Coaster that much, so hadn't really appreciated how quickly your piece count can rack up. So I've tried to be better in this zoo so far in trying to reduce the number of excess pieces that I'm using. So I no longer need all that wall structure, so I just want this piece. So now hopefully it makes sense what I'm doing here. If I flip this back onto the vertical, and then I can move it over and line it up. So it weirdly didn't kind of line up exactly, which I didn't really understand why. Because I thought I had rotated it in an exact amount away from the dome, but it's good enough, and I think it lines up well enough, and you'll see later on I actually cover this over with a bit more detail. It's not exactly as the Paris Zoo dome is. The shape is a little bit more tricky. It's a slightly more flat, almost like a flatter sausage. If you can imagine a sausage that you kind of squashed on its side. So I've copied that to both ends now. We're working on a door. We have our Mr. Domez's, I think it's Domez's angry archer down there, just to give us a bit of scale of people. And we're starting to make a frame. You saw me also again there just removing some excess piece count that's under the floor now. This is going to look a bit weird. So this is me just trying to get, I'm just sort of trying to get a scale for how big this door should be. So these bamboo pieces are not going to stay in. I'm not actually going to use these, but start to kind of frame them out. And I have sort of several iterations. There's a whole load of footage that I've cut out of all of this, trying, things that I've tried, but then I kind of go, okay, well that's weirdly the archways look like they're too small, and then those look like they're too small, but maybe they're all right. So then I grabbed a previous build of mine just to look at what the doors look like on that. I was like, okay, they are all right in scale. So that gives me roughly a door. So I'm going for like a glass door. You may or may not have seen it in the thumbnail. And then I'm sort of boxing this out again with these the steel girders, just to give it a bit more of a solid look. Framing this out. And then I'm kind of going to end up, you'll see in a minute that I end up kind of changing it, compensate for the glass. Obviously now we have these awesome new glass pieces that we've kind of needed for a while, but that they don't need any frame. But actually, funnily enough, I kind of ended up, you'll see in a second, it ends up then dictating the size of the doors. So because I don't want that glass join, you can see there's a join there that doesn't quite match up with the position of the door. So I think, okay, well that's my size of the door. I can hide a bit on the right and left, and then end up with a girder in the middle. So I think, okay, well if I use these little, I need something that makes it look like there's a divide. So I just use the little black brackets and drag those down, and I think that kind of works. I end up with the annoying kind of can't copy this across because I've got things that I've rotated, but I think it kind of works out right. So yeah, it's just supposed to be that's like a gap in the, so it's not one solid piece of metal, it's two different pieces there. That's the idea of it. So yeah, jumps ahead a little bit. So then I'm doing just some detailing on the doorway really. This is supposed to sort of trying to go with, I think in this zoo I'm going to go with a much more, probably a little bit more of a realistic feeling to the zoo. And what I'm going to build is going to be try to be a bit more kind of credible as something that would actually exist. So I'm paying real attention to the fact that, as I said before, this is supposed to be set in temperate Europe, but I'm building what is effectively like a rainforest inside this dome, or that's the ambition of it anyway. So what is one of the really important things is to make sure this looks like it could have a kind of an airflow system and be heatable and the humidity controlled and all that sort of thing. So if you've seen any of those structures in real life, like if you've been to any of those kind of big biodome things like the Eden Project, or even just come when you see it in garden centres and stuff, they're you see a lot of kind of humidity and climate control things. So you'll see a few of those in this, and then I'll show you a bit at the end. I should have said actually there'll be a bit of kind of real-time footage at the end. That's a big jump. So I've just built this. This is actually on the zoo in real life in Paris, but I've kind of, I think, done what most people do when they do these things, is rather than just try and do a recreation, it's kind of an inspired by kind of thing. So there is this big concrete structure just tagged on the edge of this on this zoo on this glass dome, and that's obviously houses the services and stuff, and you'll see a bit of that later. This is a kind of a slightly, I guess, kind of mad thing that I was doing, but actually I'm kind of glad that I did it. When I started doing it, it kind of annoyed me, but because it was a lot of effort, but I think it does add quite a lot to the credibility of the overall aesthetic of it. But so what I'm doing is here, as this is supposed to be like you quite often see the interface between glass and concrete or another material isn't just a straight one. So those are actually, there's a bit more of that in a second, but there's it's supposed to be like a rubberized layer. So there's supposed to be like a rubber interface there. Again, that's all about keeping that climate control maintained. So just added another door. This is going to be, there's going to be several parts of this this build. So there's not going to be a completed habitat inside, and there's not going to be this structure's not going to be finished in this episode. So there's going to be various different episodes and lots to do in this. And this may well end up just being like a little mini series that I do just for this dome. Not sure yet. So building a living wall now. I haven't quite decided at the time of recording this voiceover what my thumbnail is going to be. So this may well have been in the thumbnail or not. I think I shared this on Reddit and on Instagram a while ago. So yeah, this came out quite well. So it's hedges. So the hedge pieces, in case you missed that in the speed build, because they give you a really good sort of flat, mossy texture, and the moss, because we don't actually have a moss piece that isn't attached to rock, and the rock just ends up being too bulky. So again, this is, I don't think I had a picture for this just as a reference. I think I just kind of used stuff that I'd seen. So you'll see in a second, kind of, we've put that mossy background, and we've kind of given it a framing with this metal grid. And then I think at some point, so this is me now deciding I need it to be a little bit further forward. So I've got to pull this whole structure forward a bit. That helps. Starting to put in just some more detailing, so putting in a flower bed here. I think the mulch piece is probably one of my favourite pieces, weirdly, in the whole of the game. These new, this is the bromeliad and I can't remember what the other one's called. Cordyline plants from the new South America pack. These are really cool. Love these pieces. And if you don't know, these actually do. I think not sure if cordyline does, but I know bromeliad, I think, is the one that grows in the trees and has the water traps where they trap. So I think I'm right in saying, correct me in the comments if you know this, but I think I'm right in saying that bromeliad is a carnivorous plant, and it's the one that has the kind of water traps. They grow in the trees, and because they're not attached to the ground, they create little pools of water, and they collect insects, and I think I'm right even saying frogs come and feed in those. Or small birds and things come and feed from those little pools that they create and get trapped in the pools and slowly kind of digested. They look like they're water pools, but they're actually, I think they're kind of like an acidy solution. And then weirdly, the plant then absorbs its prey and feeds. I think that's a bromeliad. I probably should have checked before going off on that little random tangent. So this is this is just the kind of entrance bit inside. So Again, as I said, this isn't all. None of this is going to be finished. This is probably just the first stage. So just lining this out. I don't think you saw this, but there is another door just to our left there that goes into the actual dome. And yeah, so just giving this some details. This I think is going to be. I'll talk about this more in the real time section at the end, I think. But this is going to be probably just have some toilets in it and a little bit of a information parts, and also be potentially entrance to the habitats and stuff. So again, again, it was important for me to have this kind of credible airlock. So you'll see the double doors there. Well, this was quite a nice little detail actually that I discovered. So you may well have missed that, but that was the African lamppost. If you sink these African lampposts down into the floor, and this floor, that probably whipped past too quickly in the speed build, but the floor is actually the back of one of the double doors. I've used this before. I think I used that in my reptile house. It's just a really cool texture. It's got like it's got a nice colour to it, but it's also got like a shine to it. So it looks like a kind of shiny wooden floor, but black and matte, which is really nice. And then I just thought I'd give it this detail. There's a lot of pieces involved here, but give it this detail of this gold cube. Oh, there's me back to some of that mad. This last bit of me kind of sealing in the glass dome. I think I've actually hidden away quite a bit of this as well. So how are we doing on just having a quick check on the time? So we've got a little bit of time still. Okay, yeah, I forgot I had done this. So this is back inside or back to the structure of the dome. So I wanted to add, just kind of ended up adding some more details basically. So I wanted to add a little bit more framing to it. So I'm going back to the main structure, copying some of those girders out, and then I'm going to pull this. You'll see a second. I pull that right down to the end, and then I frame out just to give it it looks like initially it's just to give it a little bit more of a structural look. So there you'll see that it's like an end piece there. Same on the other end, and then it occurs to me that it would be cool to actually have like a some sort of access way. And you quite often see on these sorts of dome buildings, and I think actually on the one in Paris it does have like a walkway at the top. So this is pretty simple, just a kind of little pathway, steel structure on the roof. So just getting this in the right position, and then I can copy this. So copy that along. Again, it's just a bit of detail, just gives it another little dynamic. I did a bit more on this, which I don't think I've got in the speed build, but I'll show you at the end. And then we're into the inside. So there's not loads of this on the inside, and we are just kind of I think we're getting probably fairly close to the end of the speed build actually, but yeah, a couple of minutes. So you'll just see I start to line this out. So one of the things I really wanted to make it look like was that it was a credible kind of poured concrete structure, and not like a natural, not to look like natural paths and things and natural waterways. This was all just kind of a huge, great big poured concrete structure, and then I'm going to add my layers of foliage and stuff over the top of that, but want to keep it looking like it's always keep it looking like it was very kind of industrial and man-made, but then the layers of the sort of faux layers on top of it, if that makes sense. So the kind of the false layers on top of it. So this was a lot of, and I've cut like 90% of this out, but there's a lot of me lining this all these waterways out in concrete. And as I said, there won't be very much of this finished in this episode. You'll see in a second where we're up to, but pretty much just going to show you the tour, do a little tour, and then the details I've cut out. So we're coming to the end of the speed build, guys. I shall leave you for a second here, and then I'll catch you again in about 10 seconds. Okay, welcome back, peeps. So this is the outside now. I'll do a little fly around in a minute, but I'll give you a bit of the Tegid Cam tour. So as I said, this is totally not done yet. It's just to give you a bit of a look at the palette. I thought I'd sort of establish the palette of the whole project, or at least the dome, and then I'll take it from there after that. So yeah, we've got these, just a little bit of path work and stuff out here. Nice little flower bed, some palm trees and things, just to give you kind of a teaser of what's going to be inside. Nothing has changed in this little room. Well, we've got a random wall sticking through there. And then as we go through here, as I said, this is totally not done yet, and actually what's inside the habitat is not anywhere near done yet. But this is to give you, just to give you an idea of the visual palette, I guess, that I'm going to use. So I've done this kind of, obviously, as I said, nothing in there is right. Although I do feel like I'm going to keep it fairly kind of industrial looking, or kind of minimalist, I guess, is what I'm looking for. But yeah, this whole back wall and the structure and everything here. So just kind of really focusing on this structure. One thing I found actually, which was one of the new pieces, one of the temple pieces. Let's just actually come out of Tegid Cam a second. Am I still in Tegid Cam? I am still in Tegid Cam. There we go. Is this new piece, one of these new temple pieces, is actually a really cool texture for rock work. So one of the things I always have as a problem is that the rocks are almost like too realistic. Let's just get rid of the HUD a second. The rocks are almost too realistic, so you end up with this. Things don't really. You kind of want them to look like fake rocks. And actually, funny enough, I think this looks like the most fake rock we've got. I'm assuming that was sort of intentional. So actually putting these pieces together gives you a kind of really plausible fake rock texture. Obviously there's only one, so you have to do quite a lot of work to get them to look real. So then I've added these kind of steel kind of girders just for an extra bit of detail. I'll show you that tunnel thing in a second. But yeah, so this is kind of the design idea of what the rest of it's going to look like in here, with a lot more foliage work and a lot more detailing stuff. But yeah, these panelled pieces, I used the one of the shape signs there and just traced that out, and there's glass in there, so if you look on the inside, this is using the hidden, or the two-way glass, or the one-way glass, sorry, so that the animals don't get stressed inside. And then this same principle is, I said before about everything looking like it's put in here, but trying to create this dome, or this kind of faux layer. So what we've got here is actually, even though this looks like it's like a raised bed, and obviously these deliberately look like they're prefabricated, not rocks, more like, these are actually kind of more almost like stage pieces. And what I've done is kept it off of the wall, so this obviously needs filling out and stuff, but what we get here is this, we deliberately have this layer, so obviously you won't see that eventually from peep level, you won't see that, and obviously this needs sort of filling in. And then if we just fly around a second, so what I did actually with this tunnel structure, just get rid of that a minute because I've got a bit showing. Now I've got cheat engine on at the moment, but what we'll because in order to make the camera go a bit slower, or the game run a bit slower. But this is my proof of concept basically of this. So if we do actually unpause it, he's going to move super slow, as I said, because of my cheat engine. Here he comes, but he will actually come all the way down. So let's just pause it, go back to slow mo again. So he will actually come through. So they will actually come through this tunnel. The different animals have different hitboxes, unfortunately. So you kind of always forced into a fairly small thing, or into a fairly larger thing than you'd think you'd need. But this is actually, I think that's a fairly credible size. He's not going to use the rab. He's just going to dismount. Why wouldn't you? So yeah, what else have we got to show you? So yeah, as I said, this is all loads of work to be done in here. I've filled out. This is what it looks like finished. So there's going to be multiple habitats in here, and I haven't kind of got a picture in my head yet. There's no real plan. There's never really a plan when I do stuff. It's always kind of pretty free flowing and making it up as I go. But yeah, to give you an idea of what the density of the foliage is going to look like. There's not going to be loads of these big trees, but this is several trees put together. One thing I've noticed that you have to do, which I hadn't really ever sussed out, is you can't pot. If you want to get a path close to overlapping the water, that will immediately stop you from being able to remove the water. And it's obviously fairly critical for me. Still, I can do that. What else have we got to show you? Oh, so yeah, I also go back to that thing about the climate control and all that sort of thing. I did one of these big. This is a mod off the workshop. I changed it slightly. I think on the workshop it's actually got doors on it. I took it off. But it's a load of aircon units pushed together, and then I put in a mister in there just to give it that look that it's there's some stuff going on up there, some real gubbins going on there to control the climate. And I think the only other bits I've done is just a little sort of gesture of some details and things on the roof. That's obviously not supposed to be there. Bit of a pathway around the edge here, although this isn't really supposed to function as a pathway. Bit of backstage stuff. Yeah, this is all just kind of work in progress back here. And yeah, so there we see my obsessive sealing of the glass carrying on as well. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be it for this one. This has already gone on a bit long. Oh, this is off the workshop, by the way. I just thought this was kind of cool to show an in progress build, because I'm not going to, as I said, I was never going to get this all finished in one episode. But yes, if you've lasted this long, I very much appreciate it. I'm going to do all the normal YouTubey bits and say please don't forget to sub and like and comment and all that good stuff if you've enjoyed what you've seen or you want to see more. Yeah, my name's Toves, and I shall catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.